From the studios of the Optimism Institute, welcome to Blue Sky, where we share stories and insights to remind us that there is always blue sky above. Sometimes you just have to get your head above the clouds to see it. I'm your host, Bill Burke. Today's Blue Sky guest has a life story that reads like fiction, but is 100% true and thoroughly inspiring. Dr. Stan Andrisse is a tenured track faculty member in the Department of Physiology at the Howard University College of Medicine, where he brings expertise in endocrinology, physiology, and metabolic health. In addition to his academic work, Dr. Andrisse is the founder and executive director of From Prison Cells to PhD, a nonprofit organization that supports currently and formerly incarcerated people in pursuing higher education and careers in STEM and beyond. As you'll soon hear, Stan himself is formerly incarcerated, and after applying to colleges from prison, he earned his PhD in physiology from St. Louis University and an MBA in finance from Lindenwood University, before completing a prestigious postdoctoral fellowship in pediatric endocrinology at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. His path from prison to professor is chronicled in his memoir, From Prison Cells to PhD, It Is Never Too Late to Do Good. Beyond his work at Howard, Stan serves on advisory boards and national committees for the NIH, Endocrine Society, and National Academies of Sciences. I hope you enjoy this Blue Sky conversation with Dr. Stan Andrisse as much as I did. Dr. Stan Andrisse, welcome to the Blue Sky podcast.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so great to have you on. Your story is incredibly inspiring, and I'm really eager to share it with my audience. And I'd like to go back to the beginning, your childhood, where you grew up outside St. Louis, Missouri. Could you just tell us a little about your childhood and then how you found yourself getting into some trouble in your teen years?
Sure. So I am from St. Louis, more specifically the Ferguson area of North St. Louis County. And yeah, as a lot of people have heard of that particular area, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But it's a predominantly Black area. So my neighborhood was a predominantly Black neighborhood. My family and I are actually Haitian immigrants. My childhood was very much painted by what a lot of people know about that area, and that, from a very early age, I got involved with making poor decisions and got involved in the legal system. And it was almost as if it was something that was meant for a person that looked like me from an area like that to start getting into the things that I was getting into. And I would even say, even before my first encounter with the legal system, which was at 15, even in the classroom, I had started getting into being suspended and multiple detentions, almost getting kicked out of school on several occasions. And it was really never for anything too serious, but it just added to this idea that started to build that, this was the type of life that a person like me from a place like this is supposed to engage in. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the way you've described it very well, I think, is you sort of have that teenage brain that's not making great judgments. And someone with more of an upbringing like mine would make bad decisions, but I wasn't surrounded by a culture where there was a lot of drug dealing and things like that. And like you said, it was sort of more the norm where you grew up. And so you find yourself, you said you got engaged with the law in your teens. Eventually, you get a much bigger problem and you're a serious drug dealer. Can you explain what happened and when and how you were sentenced and what happened then?
Yeah, so my first encounter with the law at 15 was not drug related. It was a felony charge, and I got convicted So I went from just being in trouble in school and having this perception of, kind of this is what I was supposed to be doing, to officially kind of getting stamped with this felony mark. And that just kind of further spiraled. I started selling drugs before I was even a teenager, and it was, I mean, that's how I mention it, because that's what I was doing. But really, at that stage, I was just smoking weed and selling to some friends just to get a little more to extra to smoke, and it was really not to make money. But then I get this branding that kind of went deeper into me feeling that this is where I should be. And that tied with, I think, I share with the people that I work with now, that I have a lot of the same skills that I had back then. So I'm very much kind of a people person. Help. I can easily, and I help inspire people to move and be motivated to think that they can do things that maybe they didn't think they could do before, which is a great quality now. But I was using it in a way that I eventually got into selling very large amounts of different types of drugs. And, almost it felt like overnight, I went from just, selling a couple of dime bags to friends to have some, weed to smoke, to, moving into deals that were, hundreds of thousands of dollars with people that regularly carried guns with them, that had people that were not even drug dealers, that were just the people around to carry the guns with them. And I just found myself in like this very dangerous environment, and almost unknowingly how I had gotten there, it just kind of spiraled. So by my late teens, I was very deeply involved in the drug trade. I was, selling drugs from my home state of Missouri to various other states. Um, and, eventually I picked up two additional felony charges, one of which was a Class A drug trafficking that was, part of this large federal DEA sting on multiple people in multiple states. And I was, sitting in a courtroom in my early 20s, looking at 20 years to life in prison and being sentenced under the three strikes law of, I had this felony conviction as a teenager, then these two additional felony convictions. So the three strikes law is that three felony convictions at separate times. And the prosecutor was, pushing for life because of that.
It's an incredible story, and that last part about the prosecutor really stuck with me when I was researching you, where the prosecutor essentially said, "You're a career criminal. This person should be locked up for life. There's no hope. Menace to society, all the rest." You wind up getting 10 years, but you're in a serious prison. And you've been labeled this way by a prosecutor. What was your mindset? I mean, I can't even imagine just how unsettling the whole thing is, but you're also going into prison having been labeled someone who's never going to make anything of his life. What did that do to your psyche?
Yeah, I think that is something that I often share was the most challenging part. I think everyone obviously, or maybe not obvious, but there's a lot of people that have some familiarity that, prison is not a place that you want to be. It's difficult to be incarcerated because, there's a lot of physical harm that could come your way. Um, and so I think sometimes it's not understood how much psychological harm is done. And I mean, the psychological harm, of course, started being done in the courtroom, as you were mentioning. This prosecutor, I'm, you know, this young individual, and I was in my early 20s, but probably looked as if I was, in my mid or early teens. So I looked young. I was young. And then I had someone telling me that I was this dangerous threat to society with no hope. So I went into prison believing all that, and believing that there was not a possibility to come out of this hole that I had put myself in. And so when people are pushed for, or I should say, myself, having been told that, I started moving in a way that just kind of dug the hole deeper. And I wasn't making the greatest of decisions even during the beginning parts of my incarceration because, you feel that you're hopeless. Like, what is making some more poor decisions really do? Because this is going to be the rest of my life anyway. So that was psychologically, overcoming that is one of the biggest pieces. I always phrase it as the incarceration of the mind is far more damaging than the actual physical incarceration. And I'm sure we will get into some of the work that I do now, but a lot of the work that I do now is helping people break out of the psychological incarceration, because a large, almost 96%, I believe the number is, of people who are incarcerated will one day leave incarceration. But so many people who leave incarceration physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, are still incarcerated. And so for me, I was fortunate enough to have this mentor step into my life in that early parts of my incarceration. And that person, this mentor, started helping me see myself differently and started investing in my potential, both putting money, time, and investing in me. And I would say that, that was one of the big parts of starting to see myself differently and starting to break out of this psychological incarceration.
Stan Andrisse grew up in a rough part of St. Louis County. Ferguson, Missouri would later become famous due to the high-profile shooting of Michael Brown in 2014. And in Stan's childhood, it was a place where crime was commonplace, and he fell into a law-breaking lifestyle without that feeling at all out of place. At first, he sold drugs simply to maintain his own marijuana habit, but before long, his deals grew to six-figure values, and he was ultimately arrested on a Class A drug dealing charge. This was his third felony charge, and applying the three strikes law, the prosecutor sought a life sentence. With help from his lawyer and others, more on that later, Stan was sentenced to 10 years, where he began to experience what he calls the incarceration of the mind. Getting back to our conversation, we'll hear how Stan was able not only to survive in prison, but eventually to set himself up for success once he was released. Let's talk about this mentor and then also about the tragedy with your father while you were in prison, because it seems to me those were the things, if it's fair to say, were sort of help you get things turned around.
Yeah, so the mentor was somebody by the name of Dr. Barry Bodie. And when I was being sentenced, I was again looking at 20 years to life in prison. The prosecutor was pushing for the max time. And my minimum time was 10. I ended up getting sentenced to 10 years. But, as we were trying to battle against, my attorney and I were trying to not get me sentenced to life in prison, he would always come and, drop a stack of files, and there would be all these things that they had against me. And he would mention how, you need to start building a pile of good things to present to the court. And so we started getting letters from like people from church and people from school and things of that nature. And I slipped a letter in that this particular person, Dr. Bodie, had written for me for this fellowship. And the letter was not addressed to the court. It was addressed to this fellowship, because, I was too afraid to actually go ask him to write a letter for me, because he, of course, had no idea what was going on. And so the prosecuting attorney reached out to Dr. Bodie and mentioned, do you know this person, Stan Andrisse? He says that you wrote him this letter, but it's not addressed to the court. It says all these good things, but it looks like a fake letter. Is this real? And, Dr. Bodie was like, yeah, it's real, but what did you say? What was the first part that you said? He's looking at life in prison. And, he was obviously blown away. He had no idea that I was going through that. And so he reaches out to, ask me, is this true? Are you looking at life in prison? Like, what is going on? And I kind of break it all down to him, and was pretty certain that he was going to run, bolt out the door and tell me never to come back again. But this was, of course, before my sentencing, and he just went all in. He ended up writing a real letter. He ended up coming to court, testifying, asking the court not to send me away. They, of course, sent me away, sentenced me to 10 years, and he stayed with me, and, was this voice in my ear kind of combating, because by that time I was like, what the prosecutor had said had more psychological weight on me at that time, starting this 10-year sentence. But with his continued support and mentorship, tied with, as you mentioned, within the first 2 years of my incarceration, my father went through a number of hospitalizations, surgeries, and amputations, and ended up losing his battle with type 2 diabetes. And it was Dr. Bodie who passed along the first scientific article that I read on diabetes. And, for your listeners who may not be familiar with scientific articles, every other word is something you've never heard of before. And in prison, there is no WebMD or Google, and definitely Chat GPT wasn't around back then. And so it would take me weeks, even months, to just read through one article. But what it did, although my body was physically locked in this prison cell, my mind was freely roaming around the human cell. And that was a big part of me freeing my mind from this psychological, emotional incarceration. And, I would just spend days kind of becoming an expert in endocrinology and diabetes. And my mind was not in prison when I was doing that. And I learned how to like take myself out of prison. Um, and that was unbeknownst to me at the time. Part of the change in seeing myself differently. And eventually that, led to me really believing that voice that was coming from Dr. Bodie telling me that I should be continuing my education. I have so much potential. And, that led to him, when it was time for me to be released, he helped me put together a number of applications to various colleges in Missouri. It took months and months to put these applications together for various challenges of, things in prison. Um, but, when I finally put everything together with the help of Dr. Bodie and several other people, um, I had a friend press the submit button on the outside, and submitted multiple applications. Just immediately after pressing submit, just rejection after rejection after rejection. I was rejected from every single place I applied to, except for St. Louis University, where Dr. Bodie happened to be on the admissions committee. And so I got into St. Louis University, ended up completing my PhD and MBA simultaneously at the top of my class in just 4 years, and kind of was the catapult to where I am now.
It's a really incredible story. And clearly, Dr. Bodie saw something in you when he wrote that original letter, doubled down when he found out the predicament you were in, testified, all of that. I mean, truly sort of, it's a trite expression, but it's sort of a guardian angel in a way, it seems. And I guess you said no WebMD, no internet. So he's sending you physical papers, I guess, that you are. So there's that, but had to be something in you. You are scientifically inclined. There had to be, I mean, like you said, these are not easy reads, but there was something there that you had in your brain that was unleashed when you started reading that. Is that a fair way to describe it?
I would say so. And I often suggest to people who are incarcerated that, they find, I truly believe that all of us are, every human being is gifted, and every human being has a special talent. And it's about finding that special talent, that thing that really makes you tick, the thing that just, comes, I don't know if coming relatively easy is the right word, but it feels easy to you because you enjoy it so much, because, you get it so well. So I think everyone has that. It's different for everyone, and I just discovered that what I had known about myself for a long time was that I was very good at math. So, um, you know, throughout my early schooling, I had always been good with numbers and good at math. But I didn't quite uh, put together that being good at math also would mean that you might likely be good at science as well. Um, and so I was discovering that this was something that I just really enjoyed. And so that just led me to just want to just dive all in and just never stop. I mean, there's, certain things that you do that you really have this joy, or brings you joy, and you just don't want to stop. And that's, I mean, it happened to be at a very opportune time because I had a lot of time.
Yeah, right. It's clear that there was something special about Stan Andrisse that made an impression on Dr. Bodie. And it's remarkable to hear how this man supported Stan during his sentencing, while he was in jail, and later when he applied to colleges. If we ever wonder if we as one person can make a difference in the world, it's helpful to hear a story like this one. By reading academic papers sent to him behind bars, Stan says he was able to liberate his mind, and he realized he had a special talent for and interest in science. He applied to several colleges and was rejected from all but St. Louis University, a school that took a chance on him based on the recommendation of none other than, once again, Dr. Bodie. You clearly have a lot of grit. I mean, you talk about applying to college from prison, and people are listening to this who themselves have applied to college, have helped their kids apply to college. And these days when kids are applying to college, it's, varsity letters, and they started a nonprofit and they did a semester in Spain or whatever it all is. And here come these applications for prison. And God bless Dr. Bodie, because I can imagine too, his peers on that admissions committee are looking at him like, are you serious? But you took advantage of the opportunities that you had. And that gives me an opportunity to ask about something I heard you say that I really appreciated, was your belief that talent is evenly distributed across different ethnic groups, different people with different backgrounds, but opportunity is not. And I think that's a really profound and eloquent way to say it. And you got an opportunity and you had the talent and you made the most of it. Can you talk about that philosophy and how it is applied and you've seen it in your life?
Yeah. So, I am a formerly incarcerated person with 3 felony convictions, as I was mentioning, who was looking at 20 years to life in prison, was sentenced to 10 years. Fast forward, I did that time, and I'm now Dr. Stanley Andrisse, endocrine scientist, and recently tenured professor at Howard University College of Medicine. I believe through the knowledge of our network and the work that we do that I am the first formerly incarcerated tenured uh, professor at a medical school in the country. And so it's just the belief comes from my personal experience of, talent. It comes from my personal experience of where I was, where I am now. And then also it comes from the personal experience of seeing the brilliance on the inside and seeing it firsthand. The other thing that I often mention is when you think about people who end up going to prison and they come from places like Ferguson and North St. Louis, and now I live in Baltimore. And Baltimore is this place that has a high incarceration footprint. And these places also have high levels of deprivation and lack of resources, and like deprivation on top of deprivation, and challenge on top of challenge, and lack of resources mixed with even more lacks of resources, right? And yet these individuals find these innovative ways to move through the challenges of the cards or the world that they've been given. And that sometimes these individuals, those innovative ideas that they've come up with, happen to be illegal, and they happen to find themselves incarcerated. But the brilliance of, had you given them all the resources, all the opportunity, all the privileges, they would take that innovation and cure cancer, and help solve problems of people not getting food around the world. Like, they can, I mean, it only makes sense, I mean, for people to think that people in prison are not intelligent. It's just a lack of understanding how they ended up getting there. So I mean, some of these individuals came up with brilliant schemes and plots and ideas and innovative ways to get around the various challenges and deprivations and lack of resources that they had. So it really shouldn't be that much of a surprise when, I mentioned that there is brilliance behind these walls. We just need to give them access to resources, opportunity, the privileges that, some people, and really, um, you know, some of it is, privilege is not even, it's just some things that are human rights. Like, they should just be, every person should be afforded, certain things, like not having to not have a meal for days on end. I think we are a resourced enough country that we can solve some of these things. And I mean, maybe some of these people that are locked up behind walls can help us, solve some of these problems given the opportunity. So yes, I truly believe that talent is distributed evenly. It's opportunity and access that is not.
Exactly. And with that is sort of everyone is better than the worst thing they ever did, right? And I think that applies in your case, obviously. And so today, and I've seen this with some of the most inspiring people I meet doing the most inspiring work, do so almost as a thanks for something that was done for them. So you had Dr. Bodie in your life, and now you work, in addition to doing incredible research on insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, you also have, from prison to PhD, an organization that is trying to do, my sense is, what Dr. Bodie did for you, but at a scale. So can you tell us about this organization, the work you're doing, and the results and the inspiration that you're getting from this incredible work?
Yeah, you've explained it very pointedly, in that we have this, or the organization from prison cells to PhD, or prison to pro, or a prison to PhD. What we've done is taken what Dr. Bodie did, and that experience, and scaled it. So to break that down a little bit, I can recall when I was going through this change, um, I had told one of the co-founders of the organization, we were still incarcerated together at a maximum security prison. And I had freed my mind, as I mentioned already. And, I was walking around the track with them, and I told him, when I get out, I'm going to become a doctor. And he looked at me like, what the F are you talking about? Like, where did this even come from? Like, what are you smoking, or what's going on? That's just crazy. Where you don't have an outdate, and where are you getting this craziness from? And it seemed like this very far-fetched thing. But over time, when I finally eventually got out and got put all these applications together, got in through the help of Dr. Bodie, and I would write and tell some of the people that I was incarcerated with about the various experiences that I was having on college campus and going through class, and how it had this healing aspect to it. And I basically got a few of them excited about, like, man, like Stan made this big change and it looks kind of cool actually. Like, he's on campus with, looking nice, talking to various people. It looks like kind of fun. And so I made it look kind of cool, I guess, is kind of a way to put it, or and doable. And to see someone that they were just sitting next to, that was told that they couldn't do this, to be doing it, it inspired them that they would be able to do it. And then um, I gave them that inspiration, and then I also gave them some actual useful tools and connected them to other people that I started building networks with, like Dr. Bodie and other people on the outside. And so I kind of gave them the playbook on how to make it happen and what resources that you might need to do it. And so they did it, and they got out and they got into school, and they started to see how impactful it was. And we did that for, probably a handful of people, maybe close to 10 friends that we were incarcerated with. And we were like 10 for 10. Everyone was successful. And so we thought that we should take this to scale, and we eventually founded the nonprofit. And there's really kind of three core tenets to the work that we do: is mentorship, and so peer mentorship, I should say. So we really help people connect people to other formerly incarcerated people that are doing things that they want to do, so they can see themselves in that person. We had built a community amongst us. And so our organization is really about building a community of people so you can see that this is possible. And then, connecting people to resources and opening the door by using that community. And that's, essentially what Dr. Bodie did, was, provided me mentorship. We built amongst ourselves this community of people, and then we started passing along the playbook and the resources. And, so we started the organization 8 years ago. We've now had over 2,500 people apply to the program, over 1,000 people complete the program. We have people working on soon to be completing their PhD in astrophysics. We have people in medical school. We have people in law school. We have nurses. We have electricians, and everything else under the sun. We don't really focus on trying to get people into one career field. We help people understand what that talent that they were born with and that they've been given. We help them understand what that is, and we help them connect that to a career path.
Stan Andrisse says that talent is evenly distributed across different population groups, but opportunity is not. He says that in places like where he grew up, a lack of opportunity leads some very talented people into lives of crime. And he reminds us that, as he says, there is brilliance behind prison walls. His From Prison to PhD program works to turn this brilliance into opportunities, using the power of examples like Stan's and others who've gone on to have success once they were released from incarceration. Let's get back now to our conversation to learn more about the amazing results this organization has had. I was on your website, your organization's website, and the statistics, there's the volume of people that you've worked with, which is incredible. But matriculation rate post-secondary is like 98%, and the GPA of these people when they go to school is approaching 4.0. And I mean, it's unbelievable. So how does someone in prison find you? Is Is the prison itself helping you identify sort of the people that seem to have like a go-get-em attitude? How are you finding these people? It's incredible.
I mean, given that it was just Giving Tuesday yesterday, and as a nonprofit, I would be remiss not to mention that it was Giving Tuesday, which is a time to give to nonprofits that you feel passionate about supporting their mission. Um, and I say that to say that, so how do we find the people that we work with? So we are inside a number of correctional facilities. We've been since we found. So I live here in Baltimore now. As you know, I mentioned I'm a tenured professor at Howard University College of Medicine in DC. But before DC, I was at Johns Hopkins Medicine. That's what brought me from St. Louis to Baltimore in their endocrinology department at the medical school. And so I live here in Baltimore. The organization was founded in Baltimore. And so since we were founded 8 years ago, we connected with Maryland Corrections. And then, we started running things with DC Corrections and North Carolina Corrections and Missouri Corrections, where, I also have lots of connections being from Missouri, and we're inside New York Corrections. So we've partnered and we're inside a number of correctional facilities. But then it's things like this that spread the word. So we are now the other reason I mentioned Giving Tuesday, we're kind of almost overwhelmed with people from all over the country, incarcerated people from all over the country reaching out to us, to support. So one of the things that we've also done since almost our beginning, because our data and my experience and the experience of the other co-founders tells us that a connection to the outside world, even with no programming or no access to resources, because the program that we run, which is called the Prison to Professional Scholars Program, it provides scholarships and resources and access and a lot of other things. And due to funds, we could only provide that to a number of folks. But that number of folks happens to be, in the range of about 170 people a year. But we have even more reaching out to us. And what we do, we started a pen pal program. So we can't exactly provide them the scholarships and the access to various opportunities that we have. Like we have a full ride scholarship here in Baltimore through a National Institutes of Health grant, which, I always used to mention that NIH is Dr. Fauci's organization. That made more relevance. We're already so far past COVID, but many people remember Dr. Fauci talking to us every day on the TV. But the NIH is not just his institute. It's the number one funder of medical research in the world. And they help fund us. We're one of their first projects that fund formerly or currently incarcerated people to get a full ride to go to a community college to pursue a STEM degree, then a 4-year college at Howard University in a STEM degree and doing research. So to people that reach out to us from all over the country, we can't provide that type of opportunity to them, but we are able to connect them to the outside world through our pen pal program, which is a pretty vibrant connection. And a person like yourself or any one of the listeners listening in right now can actually make a very big impact just by simply writing one letter a month. That's what Dr. Bodie gave me this lifeline by simply like writing to me and not really knowing. He had no experience with people who had been in prison. But it was just, he gave me this lifeline. And there's a lot of research that shows just writing a letter can make, really make a difference in a person's life and keep them from going back to prison.
Amazing. I had a guest on this show, a man named Jeff Korzenik, you may be familiar with. He wrote a book called Untapped Talent. His is more about hiring people right out of prison. And one of the things he said to me was something you hinted at here, which is what a lot of folks need who are incarcerated is just some vision of what could be on the other side. It's so hopeless at times, and you just think, this is my life. I'm a career criminal, as you were labeled. But just painting that picture, and it also reminds me, It's a book that it seems to come up like every 5 episodes or so. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, where he was a Holocaust survivor, and he looked at those who survived the concentration camps, and it was people who had some meaning outside that they could point to. I want to get back to my profession. I want to get back to my family, something on the other side. So it seems that Dr. Bodie planted that seed with you. These pen pals plant that seed. And again, your results speak for themselves. It's just incredible. And you're not only doing things for these individuals, the expense of incarceration and therefore the expense of the recidivism rate and all these things too, just as a society, this is such a gift to society, let alone these individuals who you are helping out. It's really remarkable work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, you know, it's important for people to be who may not be as familiar with the carceral system, um, to really have that understanding of relatively an easy lift to really change, to have such a huge impact, um, is just to pick up and write a letter to an incarcerated individual.
As Stan says, from prison to PhD can make an impact with seemingly small and inexpensive gestures, like being a pen pal for someone behind bars. Just one letter per month can help give hope and paint a picture for what's possible for prisoners post-release. And if you haven't listened to our Blue Sky conversation with Jeff Korzenik, this one goes all the way back to episode 6, nearly 3 years ago, and I think you'll find it worth your while. Meantime, let's get back to the final segment of this conversation with the remarkable Stan Andrisse. One of the things that Jeff Korzenik said to me when he's talking to companies, organizations thinking about hiring people who've been incarcerated, there's obviously stigma. There's also, the box you check, and we could talk about ban the box as well. But he said one of the things he tells them is you got to understand these are people who have been through incredible hardship. Working 9 to 5 in your office or your factory is going to seem like light work compared to what they've been through. And if you give them a chance, they're going to be loyal. They're going to be hardworking. They're going to complain a lot less than a lot of the people you hire because they've been through worse. And I imagine you're seeing that as well. And so, when Dr. Bodie's talking to the admissions department at St. Louis University, it's like, oh, this guy's going to work really hard because he's been through hell and back, right? Is that part of your sell to people and to schools when you're helping people transition?
Yeah, that's a great point, and definitely is. I would say that another another way of looking at that is a lot of people who offer courses inside prison will say that their students on the inside are light years better than their students on the outside for a number of different reasons. But one is just the engagement level. Um, and I mean, there's some real, like, just kind of obvious reasons is that there aren't the distractions that you have in a classroom, like cell phones and, wanting to talk to this particular person for some reason. So there's less distractions, but I think there's just this hunger. I mean, I personally experience this wanting to prove others wrong and wanting to prove society wrong and show them that I am worthy. Because again, to the psychological, emotional harm that's done, I had this feeling of being less than and not being worthy. So I wanted to like build my self-worth and show that I can bring value to myself and others. And so that just that left me wanting to work harder. And that's what we've experienced. You mentioned the GPA of our students. It is that same thing that we've experienced countless time after time, is that they get out and they're hungry to be this new version of themselves, to reinvent themselves. And we've given them an avenue, and we're kind of helping them rewrite their story. And it's exciting. And I think people are just motivated to really show the world that they are this changed person, and really also motivated to bring their talents to bring good. There's so many people like myself who are starting various initiatives related to some experience that they had. You know, maybe they experienced food insecurity, and that's what led them into the life that led them to crime and led them into incarceration. And now they're starting food pantries, and they're working on Thanksgiving when others are, you know, with their families. They're out feeding people that don't have food, and it's these types of individuals um, that I mean are making our communities better and safer.
Amazing. And I would think too, Stan, you've been at this long enough, you're approaching a point where you have enough, if you will, alumni of your program that now you have an army of potential mentors and volunteers with that lived experience who can just lean in and be incredibly effective as you grow and scale this organization.
Yeah, and I think that you're absolutely right on. And to kind of uh, talk a little bit about some of the recent work that we're doing, which involves we just had a book come out, Breaking Chains, Building Futures. That book was so from when I started the organization, me and the co-founders really knew that we needed to create this playbook, as I was mentioning earlier, and create this community of helping people access resources and open doors. And so that's what the Prison to Professionals P2P Scholars Program does. And we had all the numbers that I mentioned and that we've talked about. What I didn't mention and what we did from the very start also was we knew that, yes, we needed to give people this blueprint, this playbook on how to navigate through the challenges and hurdles. But a lot of these challenges and hurdles don't need to be there in the first place. So we also knew that we needed to be doing policy work to kick down these hurdles. And so one of the first policy initiatives that we worked on was Ban the Box, which you kind of mentioned earlier. And through that work, that led me to sharing my story for the first time on the Hill. And that led to my story being picked up by the Washington Post, and then eventually NPR and PBS and a couple other media outlets. And eventually, my first book deal coming about, which was from prisons. That book is titled "From Prison Cells to PhD: It's Never Too Late to Do Good," and that was the number one new release in educator biographies on Amazon. I encourage anyone listening to pick that up. That led to me doing a number of podcasts, which interestingly, it was the Guy Kawasaki podcast that actually a publisher, and I mentioned his name obviously for a reason. For maybe we could mention that here in a moment to your listeners. But it was through that podcast, because I usually don't mention what podcast it was when I share this particular story. But it was through that podcast that a publisher heard my story and heard me talking about the work that I do through P2P. And that publisher was Wiley. And that, they reached out and said, "We really want you to write a book about your organization." And I said, "That sounds fantastic. I would love to do that. But the one caveat is that I don't want to be the sole author of it. If you want me to tell the stories of the people that we've helped, I think that they should tell the story." So this second book, Breaking Chains, Building Futures, is really talking about how the organization has been doing the work of breaking chains and helping people build their futures and rewrite their stories. And so we did just that to the alumni idea. We now, at that time, had over 750 people that had completed the program. So we put out a call for applications and, got nearly 100 people from that alumni network that were interested in being authors. And we selected 13 people. And so this book is this collection of their stories. And we were very thoughtful. The publisher, Wiley, and I were very thoughtful in thinking about really including stories of people coming from incarceration from various ways, because the carceral system impacts our world and our communities in ways that some people don't often think about. So a lot of people think about the very kind of traditional way of people moving into the carceral system, which is, through poverty and through communities like where I grew up in Ferguson. But we have included in this, because these are the people that we help, people that came from backgrounds that didn't involve, high incarceration rates in their communities, and people that come from backgrounds that have, relatively privileged backgrounds, and to people, that are part of that more traditional, where there was sexual violence, physical violence in their early childhood, substance use abuse. And so we made sure that we included that diversity. We also included geographical diversity, racial, ethnic diversity, gender and sex diversity, just to really help people get through these 13 stories. I think we give a very good perspective of how someone might come to incarceration. And then the other side of it is how someone might build their future after incarceration. We have several people that have doctorate degrees. We have several people that have started nonprofits. We have people that are speakers and authors and teachers. So we wanted to just give that, there's a lot of ways to break chains and build futures. And that's the work that we're doing.
Incredible. That sounds like an amazing book. And you mentioned your first one, the subtitle being "It's Never Too Late to Do Good," which was your father's motto, as I understand. And I know that he inspired you, his memory inspires you, and I can only imagine how proud he must be of you and the work you've done. It's incredibly inspiring. I'm going to encourage everyone to learn more about your nonprofit. Tell us what the best URL is to go to learn more and to give to the work that you're doing.
So I encourage you all to go to our website, from prison cells to phd.org. Also to check us out on social media. For the organization's social media handles, it's at prison2pro. And my social media handle is at dr_Andrisse, at Dr. Andrisse. We are very active on social media, so you can learn a lot about the work that we're doing, find out ways to get involved. And you can also check out our website, from prison cells to phd.org, to learn more about the work.
Well, you're a great inspiration, and I can't even imagine actually how busy you are given the range of things you're doing. So I appreciate you taking time to speak with us today, and I wish you nothing but the best. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I'll add a tip of the cap here to Guy Kawasaki, as not only did his podcast interview help Stan connect with a publisher, it's also how I came to know his work. We'll have Stan's books up on the Blue Sky bookshelf if you'd like to learn more about him, his life, and his inspiring work. I hope you enjoyed this Blue Sky conversation with Dr. Stan Andrisse. Before you go, please take a minute to leave us a rating or review. While you're at it, you might want to subscribe to Blue Sky wherever you get your podcasts. Sign up for the Blue Sky Weekend newsletter at theoptimisminstitute.com. And of course, follow us on social media. This and all Blue Sky episodes are made possible by the incredible editing and mixing done by the team at Sound On, Sound Off. You can learn more about their work at soundonsoundoff.com. All graphic design and cover art for Blue Sky and the Optimism Institute are provided by Crush Graphics. That's Crush with a K, if you'd like to check out more of their fantastic work at crushgraphics.com. Until next time, I'm the founder of the Optimism Institute and host of Blue Sky, Bill Burke, and I thank you for listening.